It's time to do business again. Welcome to 25 minutes of updates from the world of business. It's happening on Business Incorporated, and here's what we have prepared for you. IATA says Africa and Middle East, they hold 93% of a $1.12 billion blocked airline funds. Good news for South Africa. The rand strengthens. In neighboring Ghana, the country is banning mining in forest reserves, and it's all to save the environment. You're welcome. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's start as usual from the oil space. Prices rose on Friday, supported by concerns over Venezuelan supply disruptions, though they remained on a track for a weekly decline as the supply gluts and potential Russia-Ukraine peace deal remain in focus. And some price-supportive factors remain, including the ramping up of tensions between the United States and Venezuela, and also Ukraine drone strikes on a Russian oil rig in the Caspian Sea. The U.S. is preparing to intercept more ships transporting Venezuelan oil after the seizure of a tanker this week. Sources close to the operations have revealed this Russia's seaborne oil products export to November. They were down by only 0.8% from October, with the completion of refinery maintenance helping to offset a drastic fall in fuel exports from southern routes such as the Black Sea and Azov Sea. Well, look at the numbers this afternoon. It's different from what we had earlier today. So earlier today we had green of about 0.5%, but this afternoon Brent has lost 0.02%, even though the price is around $63. WTI is still on the green side. It's gained 0.05% at $59.59 a barrel. See what's happening with metals at this time. Prices rose to a 7-week high on Friday, bolstered by softer dollar and expectations of interest rate cuts and safe haven demand prompted by geopolitical turbulence, while silver hit a record high. Congratulations, one could say, to investors there. So spot gold is up 0.7%, $4,311.73. US gold is also up 0.7%. $4,343.50. Spot silver is 0.5% up at $63.87. Platinum is up 0.8%, $1,708.11. And palladium 2.2% in the green, $1,516.95. The dollar hovered near a 2-month low and was on track for a third straight weekly drop, making bullion more affordable for overseas buyers. You remember that the U.S. Federal Reserve had trimmed rates by 25 basis points for the third time this year, and that indicates caution on additional cuts. Investors are currently pricing in 2 rate cuts next year, and next week's U.S. non-farm payrolls report could provide further clues on the Fed's future policy. And of course, as we told you, silver hit a new high. In South Africa, the rand strengthened on Thursday, reaching its strongest level since 2023 as investor confidence improved amid positive economic indicators and renewed foreign inflows. The rand gained against the US dollar, trading at around 17.50 for a dollar, and that marks a significant rebound from recent months when the currency faced pressure from inflation concerns and global market volatility. Analysts are attributing this rally to stronger commodity prices, stabilizing interest rates, and improving investor sentiment towards emerging market. Financial experts say that the rand's gains could support imports, reduce inflationary pressures, and boost market confidence, though they caution that the currency remains vulnerable to global risk factors such as monetary policy decisions and geopolitical tensions. Governments across 26 countries are holding $1.12 billion in airline funds, with Africa and the Middle East accounting for 93% of that total. This according to the International Air Transport Association, IATA. 10 top offenders in Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia are responsible for 89% of the blocked funds, totaling $1.08 billion, led by Algeria and the XAF zone, which covers Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. 8 African countries alone account for 79% of all these blocked funds, and that totals $954 million. Algeria is the lead on that list for the first time, as the Ministry of Trade requirements add to the existing documentation burden. And then we also see ISS Regional Vice President for Africa and the Middle East explaining that while Algeria does not default on payment, the complex paperwork and additional requirements are delaying the repatriation of funds. And I hear somebody say, thank God Nigeria is not on that list. Well, the government of Ghana has banned all mining activities in the country's forest reserves in a major move to protect the environment, including forests, water bodies, and agricultural lands from further degradation. The decision announced by the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology marks a significant policy shift that's aimed at combating widespread deforestation and pollution caused largely by illegal and small-scale mining, commonly referred to as gamalsi. Under the new directive, the environmental protection in mining and forest reserves regulations originally introduced in 2022 to allow controlled mining have been repealed after a constitutional 21-day period, effectively restoring full protections for these ecological sensitive areas. The government says that the ban will help safeguard forests, rivers, and farmland, which have been increasingly threatened by unregulated mining operations in regions such as Ashanti, Western, and Eastern. In Zimbabwe, they're moving to double gold royalties to 10% and tighten tax deductions. And that's threatening to deter major investment and fuel massive smuggling by small-scale miners who produce 75% of the nation's gold. Zimbabwe's finance minister, Ntuli Nkube, has proposed tax hikes and changes to how gold miners deduct exploration costs, are setting the industry on edge. Miners and experts warn the measure will deter fresh investments and push small-scale producers who are the lifeblood of the sector to smuggle gold out of the country through its porous borders. Finance Minister acknowledges industry resilience, stating that Treasury may review and adjust the royalty framework after considering stakeholders' input. He's emphasizing that the hike is intended to ensure the state captures a fairer share of rising global gold prices. All right, now let's talk about human capital development, and this latest one is being fueled or pushed by Dangote. So Dangote has launched a 1 trillion naira education fund. It's supposed to support 1.3 million Nigerian students. It's pledging 25% of personal wealth to the foundation, and of course, FG has lauded this initiative, and the government is pledging to support in every way possible. Let's find out how best we can use this 1 trillion naira in developing our human capital. And we're doing that with, right here in the studio, the chairman, Education Writers Association of Nigeria, Majid Alabi. Mr. Alabi, good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon to you.
Great. So this is a 1 trillion naira education fund, and the target is 1.3 million students. Interesting at a time like this. How best, you are in the education, you interact a lot with stakeholders in the education sector. How best can this 1 trillion naira be used to make it as impactful as possible?
Yeah, thank you very much. I will first of all acknowledge and appreciate Aliko Dangote for finding this worthy. It's an investment and it's the best that anybody could do. I'm sure that they have a well thought out programs of how to invest this, but we must also acknowledge the fact that this is an indictment on the part of the government, because this is a failure. Somebody is just coming to our aid on behalf of the government. As far back as 2013, ASU, Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities, requested 1 trillion, about 1.1 trillion investment in education over some years. But quite surprisingly, the government couldn't meet, I think about 100 billion was paid in 2013, and since then, there's not. So we have an individual who is now thinking that based on his own personal vision, he wants to invest that. So the best way to do it, and just like they have said they want to do, is to encourage TVET, and it's part of what he has itemized as part of the areas to focus. I think there are 4 critical areas there: teacher development, TVET, child education in honor of our daughters, and also the undergraduate investment in about 30,000 undergraduate per year. I think this is huge. But the most important thing is that we have to also look at the hem and he. The people who are behind this initiative, and there is an area that I've also said that Dangote is focusing on STEM. Yes, STEM is good, but there is an aspect that is left out, and that is art. The world is looking at STEM these days, not necessarily only STEM, because behind every science, there is an art. God forbid bad things. The challenge that we have had over time is not the application of the sciences alone, but also about what should go into that science. Every science has history. Where is the history? Somebody must be able to let us understand that it is not only when you develop science alone that you are going to have it better in the society. So we thank Dangote for deeming it fit to do this, and we call on other investors in the society, in the economy, to look at it, because this is the only legacy that can be bequeathed to the next generation.
So I know you talked about the government not doing enough, but we know that you have things like NEL Fund, UBEC, and Tech Fund, a lot of reforms going on in the education sector. Where can we place this 1 trillion naira education fund to make it work hand in hand? Thank
you very much. One thing that is very clear is this: beyond funding education, it's also about policy. If the government, for now, we have a lot of flip-flops within the sector, policy flip-flops on the part of the education ministry. If you have monitored news over time, you will hear about the syllabus crisis, how students are unable to even identify which subject they are going to register for. We have the problem of language policy, of somebody just saying, no, just burn it. From a government, things that people have invested their time, their energy, their expertise on, you just say burn it overnight, rejecting our local language. By that, we have seen something that NC are now going to be awarding degrees in the institution. We have the challenge of even who regulates which courses. We knew what happened with University of Calabar. The challenge with their medical students, how regulations became a problem, and here and there NUC is somehow relegated, MDC, so there is a need beyond just throwing money at our problems. There is a need to bring in critical stakeholders who actually understand the sector. But more importantly, we have been talking about funding. Yesterday, I knew what the comment of most of the critical stakeholders are to me personally, including the president of ASU, say, oh, I'm all smiles. You know, this is a reflection of what they feel can help the system. Imagine an individual being ready from his own personal sweat to support institutions, to support individuals. Yes, and Dangote is actually not doing it for us. Yes, we can say Dangote is also doing it for himself, because he knows that once you don't invest in minds of the people, you are creating bigger problems. All their investment is going to be at risk. And that is why the government itself must show interest that only trained minds, once you are able to sit down properly to analyze what the problem is, no problem in the society cannot be addressed by quality and affordable education. And that's what Dangote is trying to do. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Mojeed Alabi. And we do hope, with this motivation and push from Dangote, we'll see more billionaires, coming up with some funds, education funds. Yeah, and as you said, it's not just about throwing money at the problem. You also need the expertise and coordination, amidst it all. Thank you so much, Mr. Alabi, for your time. Thank you very much for having me. Chairman, Education Writers Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much. All right, now let's see what the markets look like intraday. I will start, of course, from Nigeria. It's a positive one, 0.03% at 147,998.70.
Johannesburg is very, very good, almost 2% in the green. Egypt is not open today, but closed negative 0.05%, and Kenya has Thursday's number positive at 0.5%. In the Middle East, two of the markets trade, and they're trading negative at Intraday Dubai and Abu Dhabi. The other markets, Saudi and Qatar, closed mixed on Thursday. In the United States, the Dow Jones average on Thursday were higher, and futures this morning for them is also high, 1.34%. The S&P is also high, and then Nasdaq is the lone loser in the features at this time. Chipmaker Broadcom fell nearly 5%, so you can imagine why Nasdaq is down. And of course, you know, it's still the AI boom and bust is still in the news, so that's also driving sentiment. In Asia, market traded higher today, tracking Wall Street's gains. So the Nikkei closed positive, the Kospi as well as the Hang Seng, also they closed positive at the end of trading on Friday. Let's see what's happening in Berlin at this time. Chip joins us to tell us what's going on in the market. Hi, Chip. What are investors doing this afternoon?
Well, any European stocks look like they are set for a third week of gains today. And the stock 600 is actually up around 0.2%. And Germany's DAX is trading only 0.1% higher. And that's actually lower than earlier in today's session. Now, that is probably because the latest figures show that the German inflation remained above 2% in November. Now, prices remained high due to labor shortages and wage increases. But overall, European investors today, look like they are tracking Thursday's positive sentiment on Wall Street when traders embrace the Federal Reserve interest rate cut. And of course, that has also raised hopes of additional cuts next year. Now, for much of today, investors also shrugged off concerns about a potential bubble in artificial intelligence, which was triggered by Oracle's disappointing forecast midweek. And the shares of German software giant SAP have been reversing yesterday's losses with gains. Now, next week, investor attention will be shifting to the European Central Bank's final rate decision of the year.
Yeah, but not so good for the economy. That's the German economy. We hear the forecast of next year's growth has been downgraded.
Exactly. The biggest economic institutes here are pretty much ruling out any kind of significant upswing in the economy next year. And I'm going to walk you through some of the figures right now. The IFO Institute has made the biggest cut to its growth forecast for next year. It is now at 0.8%, which is about 0.5%, or exactly 0.5% lower than the pre-forecast. And the Keough Institute for the World Economy and the Leibniz Institute for Economic Research have also cut their forecasts to around 1% economic growth for next year. Now, these reductions weren't as big as the IFO Institutes. And while these economists can't agree on one figure for the growth forecast, what is clear is that they all believe that the GDP growth rates for next year and the year after actually mask the poor economic conditions that Germany has right now. And that is because much of the growth next year will be actually coming from the fiscal stimulus from government debt, which is, of course, a result of Berlin loosening government borrowing rules earlier this year.
Yeah, I'm talking about those fiscal rules and fiscal stimulus. How much of all of this depends on government fiscal stimulus?
Well, the economists estimate that as much as 0.7% of the economic growth will be actually coming from the 900 billion euros that the government will be spending on defense, infrastructure, and climate protection over the coming years. And while the government will be able to draw on those funds for the first time in the 2026 budget, it actually doesn't look like the wider economy will be benefiting much. And we, of course, already saw some of that earlier this week from the number of German companies that are becoming insolvent. Now, that number, of course, is projected to hit a 9-year high in 2025. Now, overall, ordinary Germans haven't been feeling much of a positive effect from the looser government borrowing rules, and even Germany's Council of Economic Advisors, who don't always agree that the government's fiscal stimulus could be better spent. And they say that the German economy could grow as much as 5% every year if the government made the right investments.
Yeah, a lot of if there, big, bold if. Thank you so much, Chip, for that. And do have a great weekend.
You too, Ini. Thanks.
All right, news just reaching us indicate that the Dangote Petroleum Refinery has once again reduced its petrol gantry price, slashing the ex-depot rate from 828 naira to 699 naira for a litre. Real-time market data published on petrolprice.ng. We've had the CEO of petrolprice.ng. He operates in the depot, so shares a lot of information. And he's the one, that's the petrolprice.ng, telling us that the ex-depot price has been reduced from 828 naira to 699 naira for a litre. And that cuts the premium motor spirits, that's petrol, the benchmark price by 129 naira a litre, indicating about 15%, 15.5% reduction. So let's see how widespread that will get as we get closer to the festivities, and perhaps we could feel this in our purchasing power. Let's see crypto now, and we see a green color, but I mean far away from at least the 100,000 level, which we know Bitcoin to be. This afternoon is $92,268.37. In 24 hours, it's gained over 2%. Ethereum is also below the 4,000 mark, but it's gained more than 1%. XRP, 2,038. BNB, and a whole lot of them in the green zone, even though we have pockets of the red. But, I mean, we can't say it's a red Friday. It's better than some Fridays that we've seen. But let's see what's happening. Other stories there. We see the United Arab Emirates, they're advancing cryptocurrency adoption by positioning Abu Dhabi as a BTC-focused institutional hub, and Dubai as a center for everyday crypto applications like payments and stablecoins, creating a complementary strategy that drives both security and real-world utility. You would say if the UAE wants to do something, they give it their all. They've got the oil money and they put everything out there. Now also, Do Kwon, the entrepreneur behind two cryptocurrencies, that lost $40 billion 3 years ago and caused the sector to crash, has been sentenced to a 15-year in prison for fraud. The South Korean 34-year-old had pleaded guilty to the 2 counts of U.S. charges of conspiracy to defraud and wire fraud. So Kwon, who co-founded Singapore-based Terraform Labs and developed the Terra USD and Luna currencies, was sentenced at a hearing in New York. And Binance has launched a new indication of interest. It's a feature for spot trading and fixed rates crypto loans so that institutional clients can execute large transactions with reduced market impact. The new Binance Spots and Loan IOI is designed for qualified users and allows them to privately signal buy, sell, borrow, or lend intentions without placing binding orders on public order books. So those are the top stories in the crypto space at this time, and that's it for the program Business Incorporated. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey all through the week. I do wish you a great weekend, but remember that you should always watch Business Morning and Business Incorporated on our YouTube channel, because we keep you informed and tell you how to make money and keep your money. But I'll see you tonight for the Stock Market Report. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Bye-bye.